Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 15th of March, now it's 1 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my channel in which I share latest updates on the news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. There is quite a few very significant developments and news that I like to share with you for this moment. But before I start, let me once again emphasize how grateful I am for your time, attention and support. It truly does mean a lot to me, so thank you very much. That being said, let's talk about news now, and I will start with one of the main news that we had yesterday. Of course, I'm talking about US MQ-9 surveillance drone that went down over the Black Sea. So we have two accounts about this accident. One is from Pentagon and US officials. Second is from Russian Defense Ministry. I will share with you both, and you decide which side is telling the truth here. So according to TASS news agency, Pentagon officials are saying that yesterday two Russian Su-27 fighter jets did approach US drone. They did dump fuel over the drone and then use afterburners to inflame this drone, but it did not work, and Russian fighter jets approached the US drone second time, during which one of the pilots, Russian pilots, conduct some unsafe maneuver. As a result, two aerial vehicles collided, and the US drone lost engine, and as a result, this catastrophe has happened. US drone went down. Russian side, and at the same time, US officials are saying that this was unintentional action, or it seems like, because these kind of maneuvers are too dangerous, and it's hardly possible that Russian pilot intentionally ram his jet to this drone. Because if airframe of Russian jet has been damaged critically, pilot will probably not even have a time to eject himself from this plane. That's a quite logical assumption, as I understand. So we also had a statement from Russian Defense Ministry, according to which Russian fighter jets definitely did approach this drone. They conduct usual interception mission, because US is very active in US aviation is very active in over the Black Sea, and this kind of interceptions happens almost on daily basis. But according to Russian Defense Ministry, Russian jets just fly by, absorb the US drone and fly by, and went to base. And reason that US drone crashed is that operator of that drone was conducting some unsafe maneuvers, and drone just did not withstand such pressure. When it comes to military planes, pressure means G force. So if operator of this drone conducts some strong maneuvers, maybe airframe of that drone truly did not withstand the G-force and just went down. Who knows? I was not there. But we have statements from Russian ambassador in USA, Anatoly Antonov, and he's saying that Russian side assumes that US will stop sending its planes in close proximity from Russian borders. That should be a lesson for USA. And to be honest, if we assume that Russian side intentionally target this drone, then this accident definitely is a message for USA, and that's how US should interpret this accident, because next time it may not be drone. And probably no one wants to see real escalation between Russia and real escalation and direct conflict between Russia and the USA. So let's continue now. Let's continue. We have statements that US did everything possible to make sure that parts of these drones will not end up in the hands of third parties. I don't know what they really can in this case, because as I understand, Russian side already has on its hands all the parts of this drone. Russia may give it to USA. That's quite possible. So let's continue now. Let's continue. Yesterday, of course, I mean, this was big news. Some media outlets almost start talking about possible direct conflict between Russia and USA, but of course this is not possible, not for a drone, for sure. If it was some other plane with people on board, that's a different case. But when it comes to drones, no. It was, in any case, it was message. And that's how Washington should take this accident. No matter it was accident really or Russian side intentionally bring down that drone. It was quite a message for USA. But let's see. I'm quite sure US will demonstratively send more drones today. Probably that's how US acting usually. And let's see if that's the case. Let's see how Moscow will react. Now let's continue. We have statements from Zelensky and his military leadership, according to which they yet again had a meeting in headquarters, military headquarters, and yet again decided to hold on to Bakhmut and continue defending their positions in Bakhmut and surrounding areas. And to be honest, I didn't expect anything else, because as I said many times before, all the roads between Bakhmut and Chisov Yar are under direct or artillery fire control of Russian side, and Zelensky's regime just don't really have an opportunity to withdraw forces in more or less safe manner. So they are basically forced to make such statements that they will continue fight for Bakhmut because they cannot withdraw. It's too late now. Only chance they have is to ask Moscow for humanitarian corridor, and Moscow may allow Bakhmut garrison to flee city without weapons. But as I understand, this will not happen because it will be quite a humiliation for Zelensky and his Western masters. And Washington and London will never allow Zelensky to take such a step, which means that they are sacrificing Bakhmut garrison, basically. That's what they are doing. Washington, London, and Zelensky with his henchmen. Let's continue now. And we have information. This is RIA Novosti is reporting based on statements that aide of head of DPR, Yan Gagin, made, according to which, despite statements from Kiev about holding on Bakhmut, in reality, Ukrainian armed forces are trying to withdraw from Bakhmut with small groups, and Ukrainian units are using some roads on village roads between Bakhmut and Chisov Yar, but because of weather conditions, those roads are becoming like mud river, and the military equipment is stuck and then becoming easy target for Russian artillery. And as a result, most of the Ukrainian soldiers that are fleeing Bakhmut doing it on their feet, and they are fleeing through these fields, or at least trying, and they have heavy casualties because, as I said before, all the fields, all the roads are under Russian direct or indirect control. But these kind of episodes will take place more and more in coming days because, as I understand, Bakhmut garnison is just a step away from total collapse. And when that happens, we will see hundreds and hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers running away from Bakhmut on their feet or in whatever way they can. And probably we will also see hundreds and hundreds of soldiers in Bakhmut garrison that will surrender to Russian side. Maybe even before end of this week. Maybe even before end of this week. Let's see how situation will develop. We also have information today that Russian side, Zelensky, PMC Wagner units did establish full control over this settlement here. I did share information on my Telegram channel. How you pronounce this? Zalizhansk. That's the area, basically. That's the area we are talking about. So PMC Wagner unit is still quite active in this region and continues its offensive operations. But basically, as I understand now, probably some negotiations already are taking place between some of the units in Bakhmut garnison and the Russian side. And as I said, it's only a matter of days, and we will see total collapse of Bakhmut garnison. We also have information that this morning Russian side did targeted Ukrainian forces in Konstantinovka. This is southwest side of Chisov Yar, this city, and also in Kramatorsk were some explosions. So probably Russian side conduct missile strikes on some military ammunition depots or headquarters of Ukrainian armed forces. According to this map, this pro-Ukrainian map, Russian Su-24 was damaged or shut down over the Bakhmut today, but I did not see any confirmation of this information, at least for now. When it comes to overall situation on the front line, it's a usual stuff. Their activity in Donetsk direction, especially in the direction of Avdiivka, and also Russian side is quite active in this gray zone in direction of Seversk and in direction of Krasny Liman and Kupiansk. We had information that Russian armed forces managed to enter Kupiansk and establish control over some parts of industrial area. So yes, that's a general situation. As you can see, entire Ukraine was under air alert. Today, these blue dots means that air alert was active in that areas. And let's continue now. And this is quite interesting also. RIA Novosti is reporting about statements that head of PMC Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, made, according to which Ukrainian side in direction of Bakhmut on a monthly basis losing 10 to 11,000 soldiers killed. That's a quite unbelievable number, let's say this way, because if Ukrainian side is losing 10 to 11,000, they probably have twice or three times more wounded soldiers, and I don't think any army in the world are capable to sustain for a long time such a level of losses. Of course, we have to take any information with a pinch of salt, but at least for now, Prigozhin was quite accurate when he was making statements about situation on the front line. He is quite able to troll time to time, and he does trolls Zelensky and and not just him, but when it comes to information about battlefield, he is quite accurate always, and probably this number is more or less also more or less real. Even Western media outlets are writing about catastrophic losses of Ukrainian side in Bakhmut direction. So I don't really have reason to not believe, to not take seriously the statement of Prigozhin. Also, he said during this, same time that Zelensky's regime accumulate in Bakhmut direction some 70,000 soldiers, which is also quite a huge number. And we should assume that in this area, not just Bakhmut and Chisovyar, but also Konstantinovka and the northern parts of this area between Chisovyar and Kramatorsk, full of Ukrainian armed forces, because 70,000 is also quite a big number. Also quite a big number. There is no way I can confirm or deny this information. But as I understand, once Russian side will start yet again moving forward to encircle Chisovyar, we may see tens of thousands of Ukrainian forces in Koldrum. Let's continue now. Let's continue, and we have that. This is quite interesting. We have statement from head of Zaporozhye region, Evgeny Balitsky, who said that Russian side is very well informed about possibility of Ukrainian counteroffensive in direction of Zaporozhye region, and Russian armed forces are conducting all the necessary steps to make sure that defense lines in this area are well enough reinforced and ready to repel any possible counteroffensive from Zelensky's regime. I hope this is true, because it's almost, we can say that it's almost 100% certain that at one point in 3 to 5 weeks time, Zelensky's regime will probably at least try to conduct large-scale counteroffensive in direction of this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia. So I hope Russian side is truly ready. And as I said many times before, in my understanding, only way Zelensky's regime can establish control over this land bridge from, let's say, Energodar, from Novaya Kakhovka and Energodar to Melitopol and Berdyansk or Mariupol, is if Moscow will give order to Russian forces to withdraw. But if Moscow will not give such an order, and if Russian forces will stay where they are and make sure that they are ready to repel possible counteroffensive from Zelensky's regime, I believe Kiev has no chance. Zelensky and his Western masters have no chance to achieve any success in this direction. So let's continue now. Let's continue, and this is quite interesting also. As you know, any military conflict is an opportunity to military-industrial complex to examine military equipment that has been used in conflict, and we have information that Russian manufacturing companies from military-industrial complex sending now to front, on the front line, additional armor for Russian tanks that can be used in the field, that can be used by tankers in the field. So probably we will see in coming days Russian tanks with reinforced armor, which is good news for Russian tankers, of course. And this information is very significant in my opinion. I'm talking about Seymour Hersh's statements that he made about possibility of U.S. direct involvement in the conflict in Ukraine. This is TASS news agency is reporting that, according to award-winning journalist Seymour Hersh, who just recently published his brilliant journalistic inquiry about US and Norway's involvement in attacks on the Nord Stream pipelines. So this award-winning journalist, this time talking about possibility of US becoming openly involved in conflict in Ukraine, and according to his sources, US officials truly are working on the plan to become involved in this conflict, and they will, as a pretext, they will use NATO. They will say that they are defending NATO, when in reality it will be, direct aggression from the USA. And as I said many times before, in my reading of a big picture, Washington and London actively using Poland to create anti-Russian coalition, so that not just Poland but also some other members of that newly formed coalition will enter this conflict openly under umbrella of coalition, not under umbrella of NATO, but under umbrella of this new anti-Russian coalition. And as I understand, Samuel Hersh is talking about exactly this kind of scenario, because fifth article, if Poland will become part of this conflict, if Poland will, and the other countries, some other countries of NATO will openly enter this conflict in Ukraine, fifth article of NATO will not work, because it can be implemented when NATO member state has been attacked. But if NATO member is attacking and then receiving some retaliatory strike, that's a pretty much different story, and fifth article will not work. But still, these countries will be NATO members, and that's why probably US officials now working on plan how to become more involved, knowing that they cannot use fifth article. So they will probably start talking about what Seymour Hersh is saying, that they have to defend NATO member states, and that this way we will probably see US direct involvement, not just Polish, Romanian, maybe Slovakian, but also and Baltic states. But also we will see probably direct involvement of USA. When it comes to territories, when it comes to forecast what and how situation may develop, I think when this anti-Russian coalition will be formed, and it will take 3 to 6 months at least, in my understanding, this coalition will enter this conflict openly, and they will at least try to establish full control over the western parts of Ukraine. Maybe they will enter Kiev also, and they will definitely try to establish some no-fly zone over these areas. Theoretically, they may even try to attack Belarus from direction of Baltic states and from direction of Poland. In this scenario, Ukraine will probably become divided, like Korea become divided on a 38th parallel. And we will probably see direct clashes between Russian armed forces and the armed forces of NATO member states. I don't think that it will escalate on the level that sides will use nuclear weapons, but anything is possible. Anything is possible. If NATO member states will become openly involved in this conflict, especially USA, then anything is possible. Russia and US or France and Britain may exchange some nuclear strikes. Who knows? Who knows, man? That's why I'm saying this constant escalation from Western elites is dangerous. It's too dangerous, and it may easily provoke nuclear conflict between Russia and NATO. Let's continue now. How long is this video? 25 minutes. Okay. Let's continue. And this information basically is partially, at least, confirming what I just said. Because I said, because I was articulating many times how, for example, Western NATO member states may start their open involvement in this conflict, and one way is, of course, jet fighters. One is jet fighters for sure, because it's well known that Ukraine has no pilots for Western jet fighters, and Poland and Ukraine has no specialists to do some maintenance work on the Western jet fighters. So once we see statements that Western jet fighters will be delivered, Western-made jet fighters will be delivered to Ukraine, then we know that these countries, this anti-Russian coalition, is already, ready to enter this conflict, and it will be then just a matter of time when they will enter this conflict openly. And this information here, basically, first step in this direction. We have statement from Poland. Press spokesman of Polish government, Peter Mueller, has stated that few European countries are now ready to send MiG-29 jets to Ukraine. He did not say which countries he's talking about, but probably we all know. It's Poland and Slovakia for sure. Maybe Romania and Bulgaria also. And when it comes to MiG-29, is going to be first step. After MiG-29s, we will see F-16s and some other Western-made jet fighters. And in case of MiG-29, of course, NATO will have a plausible deniability, because they can send that Ukraine has pilots and Ukraine has personnel to do some maintenance on MiG-29s. And that's true. Ukraine do have some pilots left that can operate by MiG-29, and Ukraine has personnel which is familiar with MiG-29. But as I said, this is the first step. After MiG-29s, West will send Western-made jet fighters, and then plausible deniability will not work no longer. But if you remember, around a week ago, Russian representatives in UN openly said that if Western states will send jets to Ukraine, Russian side will receive this as an open involvement in this conflict, and there was no specification there. Which jets? Soviet-made jets or jets in general? So Russian side may say, what, if you are sending jets, then you are openly involved now, and Russian may retaliate. So this is very significant, very significant. This is continuation of that news about Slovakia's readiness to send its MiG-29. Slovakia has around 11 MiG-29s in its inventory. One will be sent to Muzej, but 10 can be after some maintenance. 10 can become operational, and as I understand, Slovakia will be one of those countries that will send its jets to Ukraine. Yet again, these jets probably will operate from Slovakia. Polish MiG-29s will probably operate from Poland, but they will say that they did deliver to Ukraine and they are operating from Ukraine. This is dangerous development, but yet again. So this is TASS news agency, and one more confirmation of my reading of big picture. This time US, some US Democrat and Republican congressmen send a letter to head of Pentagon and demand to conduct to learn this matter of possibility of sending F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. As I just said, it's only a matter of time, and we will see F-16s on the front line. But those planes will definitely operate from NATO member states, and sending of F-16s will definitely mean that these countries are openly involved in this conflict, and Russia will definitely retaliate against them. So we are heading towards direct confrontation between Russian and NATO member states, between Russian armed forces and NATO armed forces. And in my opinion, it's only a matter of 3 to 6 months, maybe 8. And we will end up in a big war. So now let me advertise my channel a little bit. If you think my channel is interesting, if you think my channel is useful, has some potential and deserves to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support with small donation through PayPal or subscribe to my Patreon channel. You will see links under this video in the description box. Of course, I will be very, very grateful for this help. That being said, let's continue now, and this is TASS News Agency's reporting about law that Russian Parliament voted for yesterday, and according to this law, anyone who will disrespect personnel that is involved in special military operation can be sent to jail up to 7 years. Up to 7 years. So, in my opinion, jail is too harsh of punishment. If someone is disrespecting military, first of all, I do believe in freedom of speech, and I do believe that anyone should be able to say anything they want about any topic. That's what I think. As long as it's some normal stuff, as long as it's adequate words, adequate sentences. So because of it, I don't like when I see this kind of laws has been introduced, because it's all about interpretation, isn't it? Someone may criticize, for example, Shoigu, head of Russian Defense Ministry, and someone may criticize Gerasimov, for example, and if state officials want, this criticism can become a reason to jail the person, isn't it? It's all about interpretation, and that's why I don't like this kind of laws. I think it's not doing good for society in general, but no one asking my opinion. Let's say this way. For example, I think Shoigu is extremely incompetent, and Gerasimov, insanely incompetent. Also, that's my position. That's what I think about these people, and I should have right to share my opinion about this topic, isn't it? So let's continue. This is Ria Novosti, and we have a statement from Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Minister of Energy of Saudi Arabia, Abdelaziz bin Salman, stated that Riyadh is not supporting price cap that was imposed by Western states on Russian oil, and Riyadh is seeing these kind of steps as a risk for stability in the world oil market and a step towards destabilization in general. And at the same time we have statements from Riyadh that if any one country will try to impose price cap on Saudi Arabia's oil, they will simply don't sell oil. They will reduce oil production but not sell it to any country that will even mention price cap. In this matter, Saudi Arabia basically is allying with Russia, because they do understand if Western elites can do this to Russia, they can do this to Saudi Arabia for sure. And they see risks, and that's why not just Saudi Arabia, but many tens of countries in this world are somehow trying now to establish some new level of relationships between them and Russia and China, because they see Russia and China as policies that can be helpful for them to somehow secure themselves. So as I said before, this hawkish, extremely inadequate actions of the Western elites will force the rest of the world to distance themselves from Western states, and eventually West itself will become isolated from the rest of the world, because no one likes and no one probably understands why US and European leaders are acting in a crazy way, or maybe they understand but they don't like it for sure. So we have statements from Putin. Who said that this new myth that Washington is pushing about some pro-Ukrainian group that did blow up Nord Stream pipelines is nonsense. So according to Russian President he called this myth as nonsense. And he said, I'm sure this is a complete nonsense. An explosion of this kind, of such a power, at such a depth, can only be carried out by specialists and supporters by the entire power of the states. So basically, he's saying that this was a state-sponsored, state-conducted attack on pipelines. He did not say that it was U.S. But everyone knows that it was U.S. and it was Norway. So one day we may see a retaliatory strike from Russia. But for now, at least, Moscow is still too soft towards Western elites. Moscow is quite official. Moscow is quite aggressive when it comes to some internal issues, like as I just mentioned, this law. Who needs this kind of law, man? Why you gonna introduce this kind of law? It's not a matter of state to say to people what they can say and what they cannot. It's not a business of state and state officials. Isn't it? Majority of society in Russia supports Russian military, of course. And that's the case in any other country, I suppose. But still, if someone wants to say some crazy stuff, let him say it. It's his goddamn right. His or her, whatever. I am quite critical of Russian military leadership, and I will be critical when I have reason. And I should not have fear that some criminal that end up in in position of power will not use my opinion against me to jail me. Because as I said, I truly believe that Shoigu is a corrupt, incompetent, extremely incompetent official. That's what I think about him. And I think same about Gerasimov. And I have all rights to think that way. And what? Because of this law, they're going to jail me now. It's crazy, man. Crazy. So we have a statement from TASS news agency. A statement yet again about possible mobilization in Russia. Peskov was asked about this kind of possibility, and he yet again said that Moscow has no plans to conduct a new wave of mobilization, but time after time this topic is becoming active in Russian media. This topic is making headlines again and again, and probably there are some reasons for it. I'm quite sure we will see a mobilization in next 3 to 5 months. But yet again, time will tell. So this is gonna be probably last news for today. Okay, for this update at least. So yes, this is Artizo report about statements that US billionaire Ken Griffin made. He is a founder of Citadel hedge fund, and it seems like he's very unhappy because of this bailout of some US financial institutions that end up just now recently, a few days ago, in a difficult situation. And he's saying basically that U.S. economy is on verge of collapse, or will be on the verge of collapse if government will continue to conduct in such a way, because this is not because bailouts in general are not the way to go. This is not a way of a free market and free market society, and it's hard to disagree on this point. I don't know who this person is, Ken Griffin, but in this point he's basically agree. I mean, why taxpayers should pay for some private companies, especially when it comes to banking system, and not just them. Why should the government bail out companies that failed? Let them fail. That's how free market should work. But U.S. economy is not that free, it seems like. Or anyhow, I do believe that U.S. economy is strong enough to deal with the recent difficulties with this Silicon Valley's bankruptcy, and some New York banks also had some troubles, and of course it's not good news for U.S. financial system, but they will deal with it. U.S. economy is too big, too strong, at least for now, and Washington can deal with these issues. But when it comes to free market, yes, that's how I see also free market. I mean, why should the taxpayers pay to bail out some companies that failed? I mean, why? So this is Ria Novosti. Few more news left. This is Ria Novosti, which is reporting about some statements that Japanese fishermen are making because of these difficulties in relationships between Russia and Japan. And Japanese fishermen, and we are talking about northern part of Japan, are not happy because they are unable to fish in areas close to Kuril Islands. And this is a new development because recently Japan made some quite harsh statements. Japan become part of this anti-Russian coalition. They are imposing some sanctions on Russia, and that's why Russia also conducts some countermeasures. One of them denying Japanese fishermen to enter Russian economical zone, let's say this way. Russia did not give rights to Japanese fishermen to work in Russian economical zone, and they have some trouble now. They have some losses, and yes, that's consequences of policies that Tokyo is applying. And this is definitely last news. Putin has made some statements about Russian economy, and he says that main result of 2022 is that Russian economy's independence Russian economy gained much more independence since 2022 or in 2022 than ever before. And Russian economy is now much stronger, and according to Putin, Western elites were probably thinking that after so many sanctions, Russian economy will collapse in 2 or 3 weeks, or in in a month, and then society will come up to the streets and they will demand some regime change and rest of it. But this is not happening because Russian economy is strong enough, and Russian economy now is more independent or more self-sufficient than ever before. Of course, he has some points in this statement, and it's hard to argue. Of course, these sanctions inflict some pain on Russian economy, definitely, but we did not see collapse of economy. We did not see that some companies are shutting down, and we did not see hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people to lose their jobs. No, life seems normal, basically. There are some difficulties, but life was not easy anyway, isn't it? So we used to deal with difficulties. That's how we live. So yes, in this sense, it's hard to argue with Putin. Russian economy probably truly are more self-sufficient now than ever before. Even though, of course, Russian economy very much depends on international partners, especially in Indian Pacific region, China and India. But not just them, of course. Africa is very big player on the world market. South America also. So yes, Russia tries to develop new relationships and new trade routes with everyone, really, outside of Western world. So yes, this is gonna be last news for this update. I hope you will find it interesting, and if so, please consider to subscribe to my channel if you are not subscribed. Hit that like button. Leave some commentary about any topic you like, and if you can, please share links to my videos or my channel with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Telegram, or any other platform that you are active on. If you can, and if you have an opportunity, and if you want to, you can also support my channel through PayPal with small donation, or by subscribing to my Patreon channel. You will see links under this video in the description box. So yes, this is it for now. Have a nice day and take care.